We'll now call the meeting of the Waco City Council on October 21st, 2025 to order at 3:02 p.m. Welcome to the work session of the Waco City Council. Welcome to all the people gathered here in the beautiful Bosque Theater Gallery here in downtown Waco. Welcome to all the viewers at home watching on TV at the Waco City Cable Channel. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. I'm Mayor Jim Holmes. I'm joined on the dais here today by our council members, Josh Borderud from District 3, Darius Ewing from District 4, George Chase from District 5, and Mayor Pro Tem Andrea Bearfield here next to me. Isabel Lozano will miss the work session. I think she's going to be here for executive and business. Also joined on the adjacent dais by senior city staff, City Attorney, we don't have City Attorney Kristen Hamilton Karam is gone, but we have Kathleen Perdon is here, City Secretary Michelle Hicks over there, and we have Assistant City Manager Ryan Holt joining us over here today. We have City Manager Bradley Ford is sitting in the back here, but Ryan Holt is leading the charge here today. We're going to start the meeting today with a moment of silence. Okay, the first item of business today is the recognition of work session speakers. Do we have anyone who would like to speak on a work session agenda item? City Secretary Hicks, did anybody sign up?
No, Mayor, we don't have any registered speakers.
We have no speakers this morning, so we will move to the next item. We will recess the regular session and convene into work session with a report from Assistant City Manager Ryan Holt.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, and welcome to those joining us in the audience and online. We have one minor change to the agenda on item 2025-770 related to the historic landmark designation for the Sanger House at 3600 MacArthur Drive. The applicants have asked the item to be continued to the December 16th, 2025 meeting. For employee recognition, I just want to give a citywide shout out, so to speak, to all the teams that worked on the Prosperity Dinner, making it safe for all the attendees, Parks and Rec, police, fire, streets, traffic, and several others. It was a beautiful night, and I think everybody had a really good time, and it was we all felt safe knowing all those teams were working on our behalf. We have 5 public hearings.
Can we
yes, sir.
comment on that? First of all, I also want to echo your gratitude for the city of Waco staff and personnel for helping organize this event. And it was talk about, this was a deal that kind of happened 100 plus years ago, and everybody saw the old pictures. And I think everybody in the back of their mind says there's no way they can replicate that because it would be so hard to do. And the fact that we did it with a degree of excellence and execution and happiness, and it was just a great event Sunday night for the Prosper Waco deal. And my hat's off to Mayor Pro Tem Bearfield for leading the charge. She's the chairman of the Prosper Waco group right now. And it was just a pleasant evening for everybody. And the weather was perfect, the food was perfect, the fellowship was great, and the mission was top notch. So thanks again to underlying for the City of Waco folks helping put on such a great event. Yeah.
I mean, it's 1,000 thanks for everybody in the city of Waco who came. I mean, because so many things happened. When you're having 750 of your closest friends for dinner, the logistics can be a little daunting from time to time. But we, even as leadership in Prosper Waco, could not have done it without all of the departments that were involved, from our city management to our public works, parks especially. And, shout out to, all of the staff. We had some amazing co-chairs, and I will acknowledge them, even though this isn't the space for that, because I can, and I got a mic. Diane Deaver and Berkeley Noss did an amazing job chairing this event, and of course, our CEO, Jessica Addis. But right now, the recognition goes to the staff of the city of Waco, and so hats off to each and every one of you. Ryan, Assistant City Manager Holt, mentioned the safety, and I truly, truly felt safe. I'm gonna lean on the police. The next time we send y'all a Pinterest page for like the outfits, if we want to say plain clothes, you kind of got, There was a theme there, but yeah, everything, no, I'm kidding. Everything was amazing, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. And, you know, our downtown was lit up. We didn't have to recreate it, we just reimagined it. And it won't be another 100 years, we're gonna do it again in 2027. So mark your calendars for that. But it was an amazing, thank you so much for our support from the city of Waco. I hope you all had a great time, and we'll do it again soon.
As somebody that attended that had nothing to do with the organization or success of the event, I truly enjoyed it. So hats off to the Mayor Pro Tem and our city staff for making it happen.
What you got, George? He was like, he wasn't there.
George wasn't there. All
Next
right, okay, I think that's it, Ryan.
He was there in spirit.
All right, we have 5 public hearings on today's agenda, which puts us just one short of 6, 7.
Still don't understand that one.
We see
Roger
what you
Glick,
did there.
the floodplain administrator for infrastructure services, will provide public hearing 766 during the business session, and Director of Development Services, Clint Peters, will provide an overview of the planning public hearing items during the work session. There are 22 resolutions on tonight's agenda. 2 of these items are ratifications for emergency utility work. Item 758 is a ratification for an emergency sewer repair under 2420 Washington in extremely difficult conditions. Item 764 is a ratification of an emergency wastewater repair between the 2600 and the 2900 blocks of clay, a complete rebuild of a collapsed sewer main. While the rest of the resolutions are important to city operations, I'd like to make a note on one and highlight 3. The one I'll make a note on is 747. In the first bullet point of that item, you'll see a description that says remove fee related to alcoholic beverage licensing. We wanted to make clear that, to make sure it's not confused with the TABC requirement to obtain an alcohol permit or the requirement to get a food establishment permit from the McLennan County Health District. The actual ordinance amendment came to y'all related to this fee and had its second reading on September 16th meeting, where it passed 6-0 on a vote. Item 2025-746 is an agreement for your consideration to accept a donation from SpaceX in the form of an actual spacecraft capsule flown by SpaceX. This would be the second large donation related to the STEAM Center, as Deputy City Manager Emerson and our Library and Culture and Enrichment team and community partners seek to make the experience out of this world. STEAM Center attendees get half as excited about having the capsule in the building as the adults who have been working on it have been. It will be hard to keep their feet on the ground.
All right, I like it.
What did Dale Fizzler get here?
Yeah, I know it. The spirit of Fissler is with us today.
We don't have a picture, no?
We don't have a picture of the spacecraft? That would have been good.
It's a sight to see.
We need to go over there.
We will get a picture.
So
It is impressive.
y'all, this is so exciting, and I can't even stand it. It was a cargo capsule, so it did not have people, but it did have stuff to take to the space station and return safely with its re-entry burn marks on it. So when y'all see it, it's gonna be amazing and kind of just like a showstopper when you hit the door. So I'm super excited. Thank you to our team for helping to navigate that. Deputy City Manager Emerson for the very delicate dance we've done with SpaceX and getting all these things all legal and stuff. So we appreciate that, and thank you for highlighting that, Assistant City Manager Holt.
Yeah, I'll echo Mayor Pro Tem Bearfield. Super excited, 'cause I think we had a donation last week, or the last meeting too, so this is getting very close. I think it's February, is that right?
January?
January. So things are happening. This project is really picking up steam as long as we are going to go that direction. And so we're very close to it. I'm excited because there's like a matching rocket feature outside too, isn't there, Jonathan?
30-foot
The
playscape.
thing,
Yeah, rocket.
which is
outside.
rocket
They're putting the
oriented.
feet in now. I don't know where, I didn't drive by today, but so I don't know if it's actually up or not, but it's gonna be pretty.
A lot of fun. All right.
All right, the second one, item 2025-750, is an agreement for your consideration between the City of Waco and Zimmern Transportation to lease a 51,000 square feet of hangar, apron, and parking space at Waco Regional Airport. This is a new revenue stream for existing infrastructure identified by Assistant City Manager Blue Kostelich and the airport team. To date, expense reduction, parking revenue, and new revenue for facilities have closed about half-ish of the previous $1 million subsidy to the general fund, helping the airport gain altitude in their work to establish the airport as a self-sustaining endeavor for the city.
I do like how, the altitude aspect, yeah. I do like the aspect of staff being creative about thinking about apron space, which are weren't thrown in the deal, parking space, all the different things that peer airports are collecting fees on. So I know that was kind of the impetus of redoing some of these lease agreements out there. So yeah, great work.
And the last item I'll highlight is an agreement for your consideration with On Duty Health to perform in-depth health physicals and cancer screening for firefighters and police officers. The city's been offering NFPA-compliant physicals to the fire department, but this agreement will expand the program to the police department and will now also include Gallery cancer screening, which can detect signals associated with more than 50 types of cancers, as well as esophageal cancers. Additionally, this program would introduce advanced psychological screening for both firefighters and police officers. This program will help identify or potentially prevent issues that have affected both departments to date. The significant agreement is in line with the council's ongoing efforts to protect your public safety professionals.
Was that all the resolutions, Assistant City Manager Holt?
Yes, sir. Those are the resolutions to highlight.
I'd picked out a couple other ones I just wanted to hit on too. 2025-749, which is part of the electrolyte package that we're putting together to bring them to town, the beverage production distribution facility out there in our industrial park. It's Grupo PISA is investing $250 million in bringing 149 new jobs to Waco, averaging $54,000 a job. So these are the kind of companies we're trying to bring to the city and to Central Texas, and that big of an investment would be off the charts. If it weren't for graphic packaging that's doing over $1 billion, this is a big deal. It's a little incentive package that we put together on where they pay us back over or out of their sales tax. So it's a great structure, and I'm happy to have Electrolit here in town. The other one, I just wanted to clarify. I know that Assistant City Manager Holt, you have worked on number 2025-757, where that's a specific grant to the Behavioral Health Network, and that's specifically relative to that medical clearance initiative, right? I know that the whole behavioral health aspect that we think about in our policing and in our just the mental health of the community, that this was a pretty important part of helping free up, it was working on so many different levels of helping the person who needed it, helping the police department be more effective as a policing unit. But can you just talk for 20, 30 seconds on that? Because I know that you were integral in helping that out. I know you sit on that committee.
Sure. The item that you're referring to, 757, is an agreement with the Behavioral Health Network for medical screening or medical clearance when police officers and other law enforcement officials take a mental health consumer under what's called an emergency detention order to take them to the Behavioral Health Network Crisis Center. Unfortunately, sometimes there are comorbidities that require police officers to get clearance from the emergency rooms, and that can add hours to the officer's time. And so what this does is it allows basic medical clearance at the Behavioral Health Network Crisis Center for minor health things that would otherwise require them to go to the emergency room, hopefully shortening their time in that situation. We've seen a marked decrease in the amount of time police officers are spending on that. And so this is a good initiative. This will be not the first year for this, and so we've seen some good success with that.
Great. I appreciate your role in that too, because it's such a tiny little thing that when you first see it, medical clearance, you don't think of what that is, but how it makes everything more efficient in the system, both for the patient and the department and the behavioral health folks all the way around. And you sit on that board too, right, Josh?
This is a great program. Grateful for all that our PD and public safety team are doing with not only BHN, but also the behavioral health leadership team of Prosper Waco and what they do to coordinate behavioral health resources, criminal justice resources that are working together to not only save our taxpayers money, but get the best possible care for those in mental health and behavioral health crisis.
Thanks. That's all I had on the resolutions.
All right, there are 8 ordinances on the agenda for your consideration, 5 of which come to you on first reading. And if there are no further questions, that will end the manager's report.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Holt. We next go to the consent agenda, which includes items 2025-774 and resolutions 2025-745 through resolution 2025-765. Are there any items the council would like to remove from the consent agenda? This is the first time in a long time we haven't had an affidavit of substantial interest, so everybody gets to vote on everything tonight. So the consent agenda will include item 2025-744, which is the minutes, and also then the resolutions 2025-745 through resolution 2025-765. Next item on the agenda is our work session items 2025-737 through 2025-741. Assistant City Manager Holt, would you please introduce the first work session?
Mayor and council, the first work session, item 2025-737, is an update on form-based code efforts related to the downtown redevelopment project. The concept of form-based codes was brought to the council within the draft Downtown Waco Master Development Strategic Roadmap in June of 2024. Our presenting team includes Tom Balk, Director of Strategic Initiatives, Laura Wagstaff, Assistant Director of Development Services, Planner Isaac Burchell from Development Services, and they're joined by consultant Matt Goebel of Goebel Partners. They'll cover how the code is being built, how recent engagement, including this week's open house and a plan commission touchpoint, has shaped the draft, and the steps ahead toward a proposed adoption in the coming months, timed with the site marketing in the Barron's Branch District. Mr. Balk?
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Holt. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Tom Balk, Director of Strategic Initiatives. It's been my pleasure to work closely with the Development Services team on the Downtown Redevelopment Project to deliver a critical tool for the implementation of Waco's vision for downtown throughout the 100-acre project area. Much of the public discussion is really more in my familiar realm of the design conversation, the design of public spaces, particularly Barron's Branch. And while these public spaces are critical and highly walkable spaces and successful downtowns everywhere, they're also just as influenced by the fabric of the surrounding buildings and their uses. So most often these buildings, they're privately owned properties and developed with their own needs in mind. So a city's zoning codes are a crucial mechanism to assure compatibility of neighboring uses. And fundamentally, the benefit there is predictability and confidence for investment and development. And that's a key part of what this project is about. You see a lot of white boxes up there, and that's mostly private investment. So in this case, and in much the same way, compatibility of neighboring uses is important to the downtown redevelopment, but we need a tool that expresses our emphasis and focus on walkability, character, and placemaking. Look and feel may be an oversimplification, but it gets the idea of what's represented by the word form in that phrase, form-based code. And because of this difference in orientation and the greater need for coordinated architecture and circulation, form-based codes are composed as visual guides to allow organic growth within a cohesive framework. And I'm excited because it will help us begin to answer the all too familiar question, what is Waco's unique character, its architectural character, and taking it beyond that, well, I know it when I see it. So tonight we're excited to share a window into the work underway, not only to address that question, but to also provide the tool that enables confident investment and development by others to build out Waco's vision for an energetic and highly walkable downtown that feels like Waco. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Assistant Director Laura Wagstaff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you, Tom. That was a great intro to form-based codes. I appreciate that. Form-based code, that may be new terminology, especially maybe some of those watching on the broadcast today. So I'm going to try to explain it more visually, if you can imagine this. Imagine that you're given a pile of Legos, many different colors, shapes, sizes, and you're asked to put a Lego city together with these Legos or these building blocks. Under your traditional zoning, you would take those and divide them up. All the reds go here, all the blues go here, all the greens go here. There may be a yellow. Does that go closer to the blue or to the, enough said on that. But once, that would be your traditional zoning in which those colors represent the uses of those buildings. That's what you're looking at under traditional zoning, or also known as Euclidean zoning. However, under a form-based approach to zoning, you're instead focusing not just on the colors. It may be important still, and it is important still, but you focus on how are those pieces going to connect together? How tall are they going to be? What are they going to look like? Where are we going to place each of those Legos within the project that we're building? And in the end, like I said, the color still plays a part, but you're not just looking at the color to get that big picture. You get a better mix, you're involving every element of that and not just focusing on one thing. So form-based codes have been a valuable tool in the planning communities. Probably, I think they kicked off more in the 1990s, but they're used throughout the nation. They're not a new endeavor. They're often paired with downtown redevelopment, corridor development, mixed-use development, oftentimes not over the entire city, but within a confined area. This opportunity that we have here is so very unique, being that it is a defined area that we're looking at, that the city has interest in. I believe we calculated over 85% of the land within this area that we're looking at is publicly owned through City of Waco, through agreements that we have currently in place. So that is such a unique opportunity to use this area as a pilot program, to see how form-based zoning can benefit the city and drive us to the end result of the strategic roadmap, which we have that vision for. So with that, he has a lot of substance to cover. I'm going to introduce Matt Goebel of Goebel Partners, who's been valuable in leading us through the charge of looking at these form-based codes. These are draft discussions currently. We're looking at an anticipated adoption process early in 2026 through Plan Commission. And with that, Matt Goebel.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Tom. And Mayor and council members, thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm excited. This is an exciting project for Waco. We have a lot to cover. I'm going to jump right in. I'll give you a little bit of background about our scope, just to give you context about where we are in the process that the city has established. Then I'm going to give you an overview of the drafting that's been done so far. We've laid out 2 of 3 installments. So we're over halfway through getting a first draft of the code out there, which is great. A lot of progress. And importantly, we've talked with a lot of folks in the Waco community, and I'm going to give you a summary of the public engagement that we've done, tell you about the people that we've met, the advisory committee that you all have helped us establish, and then we should have time left over for Q&A. So briefly on the schedule, Laura referred to this. We're aiming for a full draft that goes into the adoption process in the first part of 2026. To get there, we kicked the whole project off in the fall of 2024, where we worked with y'all's staff and people in the community and downtown business owners and residents to understand what the strengths are of the current Waco zoning regulations downtown, where they might be improved, to really understand the work that you all had done on the strategic roadmap. We then put together an assessment report that linked that roadmap with the zoning regulations and laid out some recommendations. Now we're in box 3. They're 3/4 of the way across. We are drafting the code in installments. We've drafted the first 2 boxes there, districts and uses and development standards. I'm going to talk about those with you today. We're going to finish off with administration in about a month. We're going to get feedback on all of those installments and then turn around a consolidated draft in January for the community's review. And then we'll move into the adoption process. This is intended to be an amendment to the Waco Code, and so it will function as an ordinance that will be passed and go through the standard ordinance adoption process. We'll have more details on the adoption dates at a later meeting, but we're aiming generally for an April adoption timeline, and we've got interim dates set up to get us there. Now let me talk about more substance and talk about the project goals. You all did an amazing job with the Hunt team putting together this strategic roadmap that really re-envisioned downtown Waco. It's a unique opportunity, as Laura and Tom said. You don't see a lot of places the size of Waco, with the vitality of Waco, that have such a relatively blank canvas in their downtown. And so you have a lot of opportunities here to really create and implement this new vision. As part of preparing for the meeting today, the staff has gone through an ownership analysis of the area covered by the proposed form-based code districts. And this is that map. It's still in development form, formatting-wise, but from left to right, you can see the green and then the pink and then the beige and then the orange kind of. Those are the colors of the sub-districts in the downtown. I'll talk more about those in a few minutes. But the ownership is shown here, and the yellow is City of Waco. I can't describe all these colors well, but magenta kind of is a Baylor or ISD. And then only the dark blues are private entities. The point of the slide is that you're looking at an area that is primarily in public ownership with this project. It's worth pausing right there just to acknowledge that the city is doing something pretty special in that you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're saying we're going to set high standards for our downtown, and then we're going to comply with that with our projects. Oftentimes in the projects I work on, the city tries to carve out exceptions for itself. But in this case, the city is saying, no, we're going to set the bar high. So that's an impressive starting point. Now, the strategic roadmap identified different sub-geographies within the downtown, and it laid out precedent physical features that you want to preserve. It laid out features that you might want to develop and emulate from other places in Texas and around the country. And then that's all detailed on this example from Barron's Branch, where you talk about the reemergence of the Barron's Branch Creekway as a key part of that district. You talk about the reconstruction of the La Pila Fountain as a part of Waco's cultural history that can be reinvigorated. You talk about existing cultural landmarks like St. Francis Cathedral that can be preserved and made an anchor piece of this new district. So we have a lot of great building blocks for the form-based code with the work that was already done in this strategic plan. Now, what we did from the zoning nerd point of view, we came in and we looked at your zoning code and we said, what are the connections between those ideas in the strategic roadmap and the zoning tools that you have? And where do we need to draw better linkages and give you better zoning tools to give you a better zoning toolbox to implement that plan? So we did an analysis of all the codes that have been adopted, the downtown overlay district, et cetera. We looked at the downtown implementation plan and all the other topic-specific plans that have been done in Waco. We emphasized as part of this assessment report that form-based zoning is going to be the best predictive tool to give you a sense of certainty downtown so that you really know that you are creating a great place that fits your vision, the community's vision of Waco, both the past and the future as it continues to evolve. Form-based zoning, Laura described it well, with the Lego example. There's some of the Legos, but we're focusing on the form of the buildings and how they relate to the streets and how they relate to other buildings that are there. We don't care as much about the uses within those buildings. Is it a restaurant? Is it a daycare center? Is it a light industrial, small assembly thing? We don't care as much. We do care some. And there is going to be a use table in this document, but it's at the back. And the key emphasis here is on the design piece and focusing on the form. And that's why it's called form-based code. So with that, I want to give you an overview of the drafting process so far, what we've put on the table for community discussion. We are, again, going in installments. The installments are generally following the order that you see on this slide. We lay out the districts, and then we've got different types of standards that apply for site development, for the street networks, for the vertical development building standards. There is that use table that I mentioned, and then there's definitions. I'm just going to give you a few flavors of examples from the drafts that have been carried forward. We're writing purpose statements for each of those districts. Those are built on the information that was gleaned from the strategic roadmap. I'm not going to read this text here, but this is an example of all the Barron's Branch kind of ideas and themes that emerged from the community in developing the roadmap. Architectural character, emphasis on masonry, porches, and shade, rooted in historic agrarian styles throughout Waco. There's great architects on the team that have documented a lot of the great agrarian historic structures that potentially could inform the design standards as we move forward. Now, we've written these purpose statements. The team has done these renderings, like you see on the right, of what this area can look like. And then we're starting to turn that into actual zoning code draft language. So on the left slide here, you see that intent character from the prior slide pulled forward into an actual draft code. And then on the right, you see the Barrens Branch geography, the map. And you can see the Barrens Branch itself, is going to emerge from below ground to above ground and be the anchor, the linear park anchor for a mixed-use area that also reinvigorates Calle Dos, 2nd Avenue, and the historic Latino culture of that part of Waco. We've divided the area into different zones that are based roughly on level of intensity. So building height, building scale, things like that. And so the zones just roughly are scalable for different levels of intensity. Then we start to get down in the weeds with the zoning rules, and we say there's different circulation types, there's different street types, from a green boulevard to an arterial to a circulation street. Those are all defined. And we have cross sections of all those street types to show this is what the human experience on a local entertainment street might be, Mary Avenue maybe, versus a green boulevard, like U Parks. There are permitted building types on the left-hand bottom. So different types of buildings that we're identifying, civic or event building, liner building, those are the types of buildings that we're providing basic rules for, again, to give you some predictability about the types of buildings that will come in. On the right, you see that we're starting to develop the dimensional standards for these buildings. So height in that zone 1, that's the most intense. So that's proposed to go up to 160 feet in some circumstances, lower in other areas. There's frontage types that are allowed. These are the building types that we've started to define. These are all very much in process. We're going to have photos of building types from Waco's past and Waco today. We're going to have photos from Texas past, Texas today, to help illustrate, good examples of what live work might be, what a liner building might be. We're going slow on the photos because those are very important in a code, and you don't want to lock in expectations that maybe don't fit your intended ultimate character. The frontage types, just a few of those are shown here. You might have a stoop on a mixed-use residential building like a townhouse. You might have a porch. You might have a gallery or a storefront frontage. So again, we're developing the dimensional standards to say, if you're going to do this type of building, here's what it's got to look like. Here's how far it's set back from the street, et cetera. We're not trying to lock you into just a cookie cutter thing where there's no deviations, but we're giving enough general predictability that you know what's going to be there and you know what's going to be developed on the property next door. The circulation network is key. This is building on the downtown implementation plan that has been in place for a while, but it takes it a step further and is built on additional input that went into the strategic roadmap, again, with different hierarchy of streets. I'll just say on this slide, we are focusing primarily in this form-based code first draft on the area south of the river, so west of the river. South of U Parks there. Now, just a few examples of some of the new standards that are being introduced. Parking is a big one. Right now, most of the area within the form-based code proposed district is in the C4 district. There is a flat exemption in the code for minimum parking requirements in the C4. The code recognizes that there's going to be much more activity, vitality downtown ultimately. There needs to be parking available for people that are coming to those restaurants or people that live in those apartments or condos. The proposal as it stands is to reintroduce parking requirements downtown. You've got to meet a minimum number of parking requirements. But there's also a new authorization for a fee in lieu. And so the fee, which is to be set, could be payable in exchange instead of providing spaces on site. So this is probably a piece of the puzzle that, a lot of constituents will have something to say about. But this will, over time, introduce a cultural shift into downtown Waco. You have an abundance of free parking now. You also have an abundance of inactive areas and vacant spaces. And as those are replaced over time, there needs to be a graduated process to think about how parking needs change and how those will be accommodated. The private sector solution is in part this requirement for a fee, parking spaces or a fee. The public sector solution is some more structured parking. And those are identified, there's at least 4 of them in the strategic roadmap that was passed. So there's at least one parking garage, structured parking, that's identified in each of those 4 sub-areas that I mentioned. Other changes to the parking standards include, we relooked at all the parking ratios based on other Central Texas communities, other peer communities that staff helped us to identify. You know, if they were really high or really low, we suggested some changes, but for the most part, y'all were pretty similar to your peer communities. More design standards for surface parking lots and parking structures introduced. Landscaping, similar. We have tried to beef up the requirements downtown. You don't want a lot of landscaping in an urban space like a downtown, but you do want to think about street trees, street landscaping. You do want to think about maybe buffers between, you know, potentially incompatible uses. You want to think about preserving trees where you can. And so the new standards get at those issues. If you do have a parking lot, you've got to landscape it. So that's the landscaping piece. I will say there's a new landscape plan requirement. That's an example of how the process behind the form-based code may necessitate some changes to how y'all review applications. And so right now you've got just a flat development plan requirement that goes to your building department, and they circulate it and refer it to other departments as necessary. There might need to be an additional site plan or some other tool that has that just allows the city to evaluate compliance with these new standards, like a circulation plan, like a landscape plan, et cetera. That's the piece of the drafting that we're still working on rolling out next month, but that's the administration piece. Design. Tom mentioned this earlier. You know, this is an opportunity to really dig in on this question of what is Waco design? We are not trying to be the architectural style designers for all of the downtown Waco project. That's not the purpose of design standards. It's more to get at these general issues here. You know, you've got to have a front door that is accessed by that is accessible to the primary street upon which the building fronts. You've got to have a minimum amount of transparency on your main facade. That's windows or doors or something. You have to have some type of activated space on the ground floor. So it's not just a dead space or a space that's not going to contribute to the vitality of the area. On the right, you can see there's a lot of illustrations that are being developed. This is an example from another code, but we have new examples now being developed for Waco. For all of those topics on the slide, we have got general standards that apply across the board, and then we also have some specific standards for each of the sub-districts. And those are really gleaned from the strategic roadmap. And we talked about those last night with the Planning Commission, and those are really helpful. A lot of them are kind of phrased in a little bit vague terms now, though. There's a lot of shoulds there as opposed to shalls. And so one of our drafting tasks that we're working on now is thinking about which pieces in this design world need to be shalls. This is the piece that probably is going to generate a lot of community conversation, because you start to get at, are we trying to replicate old Waco? Is that it? Is that maybe the main point, but we also want to allow more modern buildings? You know, to what level should style considerations be part of this? So those are some of the conversations that we're having with the advisory committee and with the public. Speaking of the advisory committee, I wanted to finish off by talking about public engagement. We've been doing a lot. The staff has been incredibly active. There's a project website that has a library of everything that's been done. There's FAQs, et cetera. We're putting drafts of all the stuff that we've done. We've just uploaded installment 2 there this week. You can reach out and you can sign up for the email list. You can sign up to, you can ask questions on the website. We're doing a newsletter that goes out to a mailing list that we're always trying to update. We're having meetings. This is our first meeting with y'all officially on this project, but we've been meeting with Plan Commission and with our advisory committee. Advisory committee is great. It's a good cross-section of folks in the Waco land use and zoning world. You know, for example, we've got, you know, Dominique Rocco with as a small business owner. We've got Aubrey, you know, who represents the Historic Preservation Commission on the group. So it's just a cross section. They're not a voting body, you know, they're a sounding board, and they're really helpful to just kind of think through, you know, maybe are there new groups that we should be talking to? We were talking with them yesterday about Waco Walks, and they said, oh, there's also Waco Talks, and they were giving us some ideas about how we could broaden our outreach to some other folks. This is their role to help us think through the existing zoning issues in Waco and give us feedback. I'm just going to go quickly here on time. The engagement schedule is here. This is the stuff that's upcoming. We've already gotten public comment on installment 1, but we're still accepting it because we didn't get very much yet. We're presenting out installment 2 right now. We are looking to present installment 3 on November 17th to the Planning Commission. Consolidated draft, like I said, is in January, moving into an adoption process in the spring. This is our kind of summary slide of engagement, which just is intended to show a lot's happened so far and a lot will continue to happen. We're going to continue to just try to spread the word, to be thoughtful about different groups that we meet with. There was suggestions about maybe a developer roundtable yesterday, in addition to the Waco talks. There was suggestions about meeting with realtors. They have their ears to the ground on land use issues. So we'd love to hear y'all's feedback as well on how to reach your constituents. So it's a fun project. It's very exciting for Waco. Super engaged, super smart staff, super creative staff. But the people, the stakeholders have been really inspiring. And we're hearing a lot of different stories from Waco. So I'm excited to be here. And we're having fun. So we look forward to your, questions and discussions about next steps.
Any questions or comments, council members?
You know what? Why not?
Let's hear it.
I'm just excited about this process and looking forward to the full implementation of the form-based code as we continue to build it out. I think that everyone on this council is in favor of having a really intentional and strategic plan for how we develop the riverfront. But this council is up for turnover every year. At least half of us are on the ballot every year. So I think it's important to codify something to make sure that as we go forward, this is a very long-term plan, so that 10 years from now, we've been able to set the vision that is continuing to be enacted. And I'm sure there's still room for, like with any code, and there's room for variances and things like that as it becomes necessary. But I'm excited about this, and frankly, I'm excited about this serving as kind of a pilot for other parts of town that we seek to develop, and have a say in what that looks like as we look for, what to use Laura's analogy, what Legos can we stack with each other instead of doing everything we can to keep them separate? What makes sense together? So I really appreciate you guys' effort on this. I know it is not easy to overhaul something like this. So thanks for that, and I'm excited to see you moving forward.
Great, thanks, guys. This is super important because as this council and staff and city has come together to assemble all this property down on this slide here, which a big part of the transactions that we've been commencing and getting ready to close here is the riverfront property. And so assembling this is very important. Having a kind of master plan, for lack of a better term, is very important as we develop this, not only the public spaces, but also as those public spaces establish character. And with this, when I think about it, I think of character, style, architecture, themes, design. It's also all part of the same thing. When I think of, Laura, when I think of your observation of Legos, I thought it's not only just the different colored Legos, we got to have the Lincoln Logs and the Tinker Toys and the Legos all to live together and kind of create some sort of consistency in architectural styles and feel as you're going through as you're walking through this, what is going to be a fantastic part of town. I like that we're being super thoughtful about this process, because we could have just opened it up, all right, developer one, pay us some money and go crazy. But the fact that we're being very thoughtful about how this looks and how it looks not only now, but how it looks for the next 10, 20, 100 years, is going to be super special. So this is an important part of what you're doing. Thanks for all you're doing. Okay, thanks for that presentation, Tommy. The next item is work session 2025-738, discussion of the Riverwalk construction project. Assistant City Manager Holt.
Mayor and Council, the second work session presentation is by Director of Infrastructure Services, Charles Least. Mr. Least will provide an update on the Riverwalk project, specifically the section running from Webster to Avenue but to the Baylor Law School. Today's presentation includes the identification of portions of the project as suggested add alternates. And then following that discussion, Mr. Lease will enlighten us on the ongoing I-35 bridge lighting maintenance and repair project.
Thank you, ACM Holt. Mayor and council, great to be with you this afternoon. A little something different. Infrastructure services is usually talking about tanks, towers, pumps, and of course, our last few adventures on streets. Today, we're talking more about aesthetics, and we'll be talking about the Riverwalk project and the bridge update. On the Riverwalk project, we're going to go over some milestones, what the limits of the project are, what those alternates are, the project bids that we received, suggested alternates and cost, remaining alternates and cost, a possible project timeline. On the bridge lighting project, we'll talk about some of the background, where we're at with status, cost, and a timeline. Now, both of these projects have been advertised and bid. Staff had several alternates included with each project. And today I'm looking for some feedback and direction on selecting and moving some of those alternates forward. So as we get into it, we'll look at and evaluate all of those alternates. Okay, on the Riverwalk itself, we've met a few times on this and had a few informals on this project. It does extend from Webster Avenue all the way to Baylor Law Center. It's a foundational element for our riverfront. It's right in the center of a lot of changes that have happened over the last couple of years between Webster and the interstate. If you'll recall, we did actually bid this project once before. It came in over budget at $31 million. And so staff and our consultants, AECOM and OJB, went back and we did some value engineering and restructuring of the project. We recently received 2 bids, and the base bid, which opened on September 5th, was for $23 million. In order to affect this project, we had several qualifications, and keep in mind, as we look at these alternates, there's some significant challenges. We wanted our contractors to have experience working adjacent to the river. We required our contractor to be able to work underneath the interstate bridge. We had them provide projects of their similar type projects that they had done in the past. We also required that these contractors have coordination with several agencies, the Corps of Engineers, FEMA, TCEQ, TxDOT, and others. And we required our contractors to prove that they had experience with dewatering, site work, working with water features, doing significant structural foundation work, and working with bridge and steel members. We broke this project down and provided several alternates. This is a detailed illustration of the particular alternates. So starting at the Webster end, we have the Webster Overlook. Moving towards the east, we have the Cove Bridge, which spans across the clay outfall. We also have a Cove Fountain. And further to the east, just before the interstate, there is a lower walkway that interfaces out in front of the pavilion with the water's edge. There was an alternate for a water feature underneath the interstate, the water wall. And then on the east end, of the east side of the interstate, we had an alternate for a picnic area and some significant parking improvements. A lot of numbers here, but this is the breakdown for both of the bidders that we received, both of the bids that we received. Engineer's estimate for the base bid when we did our value engineering and our alternate creation was about $22.8 million. Our first bidder was at $23 million, and the second bidder was at $27.6 million. Then as you go down the page, you can see all of the alternates that we included. There's a historic Sandtown display. We included that as a base bid portion, $15,000. There's an owner's allowance for $200,000. And then we work through all of the alternates, 1, 2, 3 through 9. Okay, the estimate for all of the alternates was about $15.4 million. So an all-in engineer's estimate of 38, and the bids all-in came in at 32.1 and almost $39 million. Okay, I distributed this information amongst infrastructure services staff, and we looked at the budget, and we took a poll, if you will, for suggested improvements in accordance with the budget. And the department is recommending the installation of the Cove Bridge, the Cove water feature, the lower walkway in front of the Foster Pavilion, and then skipping over to both edges of the interstate, adding limestone finish for aesthetics, and then installing all of the entire planting scheme, and then also installing conduit vaults for future Wi-Fi service. When you look at those alternates, added the base bid plus the allowances, and then we selected alternates 1C, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9. That's $25.956 million. Current funds are about $26 million. So staff just got it in there.
Maybe skin of the teeth here.
Just got it in there. Okay, we'll go into some depth on some of these alternates and get some feedback. So the base bid was for the overall walkway. This is just an isometric view of the project. Base bid was $23 million, one of the original renderings that you probably remember. The Sandtown Plaza artwork, $15,000 is included in the base. And here is the plaza. Now this is at the end of Clay Avenue, and this would overlook the Cove Bridge, and the water feature. This interfaces across the park. Foster Pavilion would be on your left, and then City of Waco property just to the right, which planned for future restaurant sites. Okay, in the budget and recommended by staff, this is just a view of what the Cove Bridge is anticipated to look like, what the Cove Fountain would look like, and its placement in the Cove itself. $1.4 million for the bridge, $150,000 fountain. Here are a few photos, recent photos when we had actually taken Lake Brazos down a few feet to do some emergency repairs. So that's why you see the water levels a little lower than normal. The top photo is looking about where the Cove Bridge would be placed, and the fountain would be in the background. And the bottom photo is where the lower walkway would interface with the water's edge when the lake is full. It's right there in front of the pavilion. About a $90,000 walkway is an added item. Also suggested with staff, going ahead and putting in all of the landscaping is $900,000. Lots of trees, shrubs, coordinated with Parks and Rec, and then also some extra fencing and veneer in and around the interstate to make that look a little better. Okay, one of the items that is not in the budget or not presented in the budget but seemed to have a lot of popularity was the Webster Overlook. This is a structure that would be located at the end of Webster. This recent photograph is looking from the river back towards the south and looking down Webster. This would be a meet and greet place and tie together the end of Clay. There's a vacant parcel that's got future development to the right in this photo, and to the left would be the park and the restaurant areas. The Webster Overlook provides a respite place and a place to get onto and off of the Riverwalk from Webster proper.
And spectacular views of both Alligator Gar and the occasional alligator.
Correct. 7 foot, no less. This is just a rendering showing aerial, same location. This would be hopping off of the Riverwalk and walking across the street to the park and extending down the Riverwalk to the east, and then future Riverwalk to the west. And this is just a section view of what that Riverwalk, excuse me, the overlook looks like and how you would interact with the water's edge.
So Charles, do we know, or am I looking at what the design plan would be if we don't have the overlook?
If we remove this, we would basically tie the Riverwalk back to grade at Webster, and all of this superstructure and extension would be deleted.
Okay. Thank you.
I've got kind of a follow-up to Mayor Pro Tem's comment, because I know that we're talking about a 3 million delta in thinking about this overlook. I love the overlook. I love the concept of it. But is there could you do maybe the engineering or maybe make this, and we haven't decided what to do yet, but the phase 2 this later, but get some of the engineering in place, or would that be 2.5 million just to do that, you know?
That's something, Mayor, that we could certainly look at. So we would take your feedback today and go back to our consultants and talk with city manager's office and budget and finance and bring something back to you by probably November 18th.
I don't want to slow this thing down either, because I know we've been talking
Sure.
about it for a long time.
Sure. Certainly, some of the prep work could be done. Evaluating that cost would be important. Like you're saying, it's 2/3 of the cost in the foundation. We would certainly look at that. And just one final rendering of what that space could look like.
Pretty cool.
Okay, and this is just a summary of what the budget would be and what the shortfall would be if the river overlook was included. Be a $29 million project. It's just round numbers there. There'd be a little bit of contingency in that $3.5 million shortfall.
So following up, just so I understand, going back to the slide with the termination and the suggested alternates, yeah. So if we don't do that, it's just going to be a walkway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would just be a through walkway. It would still come up to grade at Webster, but it would just be a through walkway. And I think I had that picture there. So we would have to do some regrading work. Oh, I can use a mouse. Okay, so you'd have to do some regrading work in here because right now there is no wall at this location. It was removed as a part of the installation of the 9x9 storm drain box. It's really deep at that location.
So is this more the like try not to think about what might have been portion of the presentation? Or are we just walking through the stuff that is not funded?
So the original, the suggested funded was just what staff could see coming together and fit together within the existing budget. I think just suggested alternatives, this is not funded, but it seemed to stick with the folks that were doing the review to say this appears to be a foundational element. We would recommend that we build this, but only if budget allows.
But this is one of the ones currently with the staff proposals that did not make the cut for the staff recommendation.
It did not make the cut in the existing budget.
Okay.
Now, moving on to the alternates not suggested by staff that also wasn't in the budget.
Okay.
This is the Fort Fisher parking area, about $615,000 or $617,000 for additional parking and for a picnic area, and this was not recommended. There's existing parking there now. The trail would be constructed. We just wouldn't get these additional amenities.
So this is one where both staff and kind of the advisory group just felt like it's okay to cut this one. Okay.
Yes.
That's on that Knox Hall side, so it'd just be, instead of what is there, it would be extended to that grassy area
I'm sorry, say that again?
at Knox Hall. Is that what I'm looking at, right?
So this,
Yeah, and so the parking would be,
the parking would be just the aerial that you see over here.
well, that's what it is. I mean, but what it would have been would be where?
Would have been this. It's a much larger area. In fact.
In the
I can
grassy
go-
area, you
let me-
mean?
I'll go back to that first slide.
I'm sorry.
Same question.
There you go. So the improvement for the picnic area would have been this piece in here, and then all of this paving, parking, sidewalk, and steps to get down to the walk
got it.
would be deleted. So this whole segment here was $617,000.
Okay.
Okay, moving back. Something else that staff felt could be deleted and was not in the budget was the idea of the water wall, which was a lit water wall structure underneath the interstate. $1.8 million, quite a bit of money.
I think we all kind of, last time this was presented, we were all good with, or there wasn't a lot of advocates for keeping it.
Everybody except for Bradley. Bradley did like this one, didn't you? Right.
It is still something that, in theory, could be added at a future date. Just as a quick timeline, this is where we're at. We've completed our bidding. We can work with, like I said, city manager's office, finance, budget, council through the end of the year, and then hope to get started in construction lasting through 2027.
So Charles, just thinking that through, so if this, let's say dedication or ribbon cutting is, November, December of 2027, at that point is kind of the loop closed or fully operational on the Riverwalk from Herring all the way to that Humphrey Bridge on both sides? Is that a functional loop at that point? I don't think there's any other impediments. You know what I mean? Because we built out on the other side near Old Buzzard Billy's,
Yeah.
That walkway.
In the initial portion of this discussion, there were additional improvements that were going to be made between Webster and Franklin. There were some concerns with some of the existing overhead clearance and a few other things. I still think it's functional now, but it's not preferred. There's some O&M concerns that Parks and Rec has, but I think it's functional.
Okay.
So this was just a summary sheet here that kind of showed if you selected the proposed, or if we went with the staff proposed, you're plus the $3 million overlook, you're at $29 million. It aggregates the non-selected water wall, parking, and the other planting option, which was about a $3 million cut, and then shows the funding sourcing and how much money is unfunded if the Webster overlook was kept in place. If you delete that Webster overlook, we're right at the budget. There's a few $100,000 for contingency. It's $26,214,000 and change available, and I believe without the $3 million, and we were at 25.9.
Is there in the designs for this, and I apologize if my ignorance is being revealed here, but on the closer to the bridge or the suspension bridge end of this, or as you get down to Clay and Webster, is there a way in which the trail meets the road at some point or up to the?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
I
Like
think
to
so.
kind of access it on that end?
Yeah, so here at this location, the trail comes back up and interfaces with these parcels here. And yeah, so it comes back up to the Sandtown Plaza area, and then you can walk out on
And that's Clay.
top. Yeah,
Okay.
this is Clay. There'll be some traffic impediments here to keep cars from pulling out on the end of Clay there.
Is that bridge, is that because of the natural way that the river sits there? I mean,
The bridge was there is just to be a special amenity for people to get out over the water. We do have a separate project that is ongoing, removing sediment from this area, and we're working with the Corps, and that's a separate future issue. But the bridge is there just to give people an opportunity to get out of the water. An amenity.
I guess that little cove there is a natural, I mean, that's where the old Brazos Queen used to be a long time ago.
Used to be Brazos Queen here. The cove is here. We've got the arch tunnel storm drain, which I think is 15 by 17, 15 feet by 17 feet. It comes out right underneath Clay, right here.
so what becomes of it with this?
It'll stay. That tunnel goes all the way back to 13th, I think.
If you take the trail down towards the suspension bridge on this side, or if you take the river walk down to the suspension bridge, at some point you have to take stairs up, or is there a ramp up to get up to the suspension bridge?
Is there a ramp?
You know what I'm talking about? Like, because I'm trying to think of like pedestrian and bike mobility through this area. And like, I've done this before. I used to run this loop, and I've done it on a walking loop with family too. And right now there's a section without sidewalk on street level from Franklin to the railroad, to the beer distributor. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is not like a protected, Betty Keith right there. And then with downtown Riverfront, it picks up again past the tracks with wide sidewalk as you go to the pavilion. But if you're on the river level, I don't know, I'm trying to think like how you get up, let's say you're on bike, back up to the street. I know, I guess what you're saying is you can do it there at Clay.
Okay, so if I am running from Jackson on the trail, you'll be able to get to where the Webster Overlook would have been.
Okay.
It'll tie to trail, and you will go down, and there will be a restaurant interface at this location.
Yeah.
Then you can split and come back up to the Sandtown fixture, Sandtown Plaza, or you can stay flat and go across the cove.
Okay.
If you go up, you can come back down in front of the pavilion, and then you have another path here. You can go low towards the water's edge, or you can stay flat and go all the way across.
Okay.
Do you
So
mean
there is
Yeah.
there is continuity with the surface at Webster, at Clay, and then down here in front of the interstate, this is a lower level that comes back
Okay.
up.
And I guess my questions are more outside of the scope of this project, but it's, one thought is making sure that we've got ADA connectivity on as you go
from Webster
to the left of this, from Webster to the suspension bridge on
To
the
Franklin,
side of the
yeah.
river. Like, I think we're all good on the other side, but I'm trying to think through how to get to the suspension bridge to get onto this.
There is a ramp,
Safe.
there's a ramp switchback between the suspension bridge and Washington
Okay.
that is ADA,
On which side of the river?
It's on the south
on the
side.
downtown side.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it should be connected then. Okay. It's just been a while. It's been since 2019 since that's been open, so I'm trying to think through how to get through.
Okay, so any feedback on selected alternatives? I'll go back to this page here. You've got alternate 1C, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9. And what I'm hearing is we need to reevaluate alternate 2, Webster Overlook, for cost impacts, and is there a way to lessen that and provide it for a future option, say if the city goes from Webster back to the west, and stick to the $26 million original budget?
That's kind of what I'm thinking, Charles. I know that we just spent money on buying a bunch of land down there, so we got to be conscious on these budgets of 2 and 3 million here and 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 million there. It all starts adding up, right? So I like the way staff has gone through and kind of picked out the parts that will accentuate what we're doing with the bridge lighting and visible from I-35 and in front of Foster Pavilion, where we're trying to get some more commercial activity there. So I'm thinking, it's feeling like we stick to, unless we can find 3 million somewhere, sticking to the 26, and then maybe figuring out what, I don't know what you'd call it, partial engineering or whatever to leave, because it looks like there's an overhang and all that. If you could somehow structurally make sure that it could accommodate that in some future phase. At least that's how I'm thinking. So I guess we think through the 26, but then also spend a couple more weeks, I guess, thinking about the 3 and what we can do on the engineering. Does that just slow it down if we have to wait 2 more
No,
weeks
sir,
till the
I don't
next
think so.
meeting? I know that we've been
No, we have
talking about
time.
this. We funded it a couple of years ago, and I know that we're trying to refine it. And the other thing that I've noticed on here, in your first slide, was how the cost of those base bids have come down a little bit too, so.
We restructured the project to allow the base bid to be smaller.
Yep.
So we wanted to get this thing built. We knew we had 26 million, and so we wanted to get under that number.
Great.
I think this is going to really open it up. I appreciate what staff has done here because I think this will really open that area up for a lot of our visitors to kind of wander down to the riverfront, take advantage of all the good activity going on now, and just enjoy the natural beauty of the river. So appreciate it.
Okay.
What is it? It feels anticlimactic. We're putting in this beautiful bridge and this beautiful fountain, but we're not putting in the overlook maybe. So, but I want the energy of this beautiful bridge to what we leave today with.
The only question I had is, I can certainly see areas where, waiting to come back and do the overhang could get to be pretty expensive. But in terms of if we're pulling back on the planting and irrigation, is that something that you feel like the cost would stay relatively stable on if we wanted to come back in at a later date and really do it up for any reason?
That's a tough question.
Oh, well,
Planting and irrigation dollars really changed quite a bit over the last bid. And I would think that we go ahead and move forward with planting and irrigation now. And it's going to be harder to do the water wall after everything if we want to do that, quite honestly. If we want to come back and do the overlook, it's open, there's nothing above us. It's a lot more doable, I think. And so, I would
That's
probably.
just one of those ones
I'd
that-
stick with planting and irrigation and move it forward. You're going to have years of tree growth and what have you.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. That's one of those ones that it is like the top of the nice to have, right? When you're walking the Riverwalk, you see sort of the planting and irrigation done up to the nines, and it's really fantastic, but certainly can get really expensive.
Absolutely.
And so and it's also one of the things that is easier to sacrifice because of the larger beauty of the project. So just wanted to know if there's any way to, and to your point, we can wait and see what that growth looks like, and it could just be amazing down the line naturally. So that's it for me.
Charles, one more question.
Yes, sir.
I think it makes sense taking out that water wall, but does the plan, like what will be there instead?
There is a fencing and screening option, or minimalistic look. There we go. So there's some screening and some limestone. This picture, did I put another picture in here? Maybe not.
Does it merit an opportunity for art?
It could be. It could be. It could be re-envisioned for that space to have an artistic touch. Sure.
That answer your question, George?
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Charles on this one? Okay, you got another part of your
Yeah, we're gonna
prezzo.
fly through the bridge work here. So bridge lighting. The bridge lighting has had some challenges in the last few years, and Infrastructure Services has worked diligently to get it as functional as possible. We've got about 60% operable at the moment. There are definitely some maintenance challenges and equipment requirements that are needed out there. This project is to implement a more durable system and address maintainability and long-term reliability. We did advertise and bid this project. The base bid for this project included repairing one set of columns, the columns closest to the Foster Pavilion, and then we alternated replacing out all of the other columns. So we'll go through this. This is just a lighting layout, kind of gives you an idea where all the fixtures are at and what the original columns were called, A, B, C, D. Column BD is closest to the pavilion, and that is the base bid, replacing all of that lighting infrastructure. I think I had shared this in an informal in a previous council, and city staff, we went through, we looked at all the conduit, we looked at all the wire, we checked continuity, we checked all the equipment, and we found quite a bit of damage, and we repaired all of that damage. And we are at a point now where we need some new infrastructure to make this system whole. I think I shared some of these photos in the past. This shows what some of our control looks like and which fixtures are currently working. We did verify power at all columns now. We've repaired all of the damaged conduit and wiring. There are some functional issues that remain. It's likely within the fixture or the control wire, and that is all included in this particular project, replacing that. We had one bidder. The bidder has done some similar projects. I included on this slide the project they did in Pflugerville. I personally called Pflugerville's management. They had a successful project with this particular contractor. That project was very similar in the lighting fixtures and the capability of what they installed. However, it was about 1/4 the size of our proposed project. Our base bid was to replace one column, or one set of columns, the columns closest to Foster Pavilion. The estimate was $650,000. It came in at $654,000. We did alternate some. We did have some alternates. One was a maintenance contract. We thought it was very reasonable, about $6,000 a year to come down, test, and troubleshoot the project going forward. And then we did alternate all of the other columns, a complete fixture replacement, and that came in at another $930,000. So to get a new system, new fixtures, new wire connections, about $1.6 million all in. And that new system, here's just a photograph of what some of those fixtures look like, the actual cabinet, and some of the hardware that we would work to replace and update to the current standards. And these new light fixtures and the project would help with challenges that we've had in the past, which staff verified. We've had some bird challenges. We've got weather connectors and wire problems that we've had. And this opportunity we would take to replace all of the bezels with hail-resistant bezels and also give us remote access to the system so that the mayor could use his phone to update the lights.
We do not want that.
Okay.
Totally
I'll
agree with
scratch
Darius on
alternate.
that.
And this is just a quick schedule, what we could be if we, started today. I think it's an 8 to 12 week delivery time on the fixtures, and then we have to coordinate. The most critical portion is coordinating access underneath the bridge. TxDOT wants us to use a bucket boat on their structure. There's just a few in the nation, and so we have to schedule those folks to come down and give us access to the underside of the bridge. Replace all the hardware that we need to there.
In my ignorance, what is a bucket boat?
Bucket boat is a patented device, and there's one company in the U.S. that we utilize
Nice.
to literally have a lift on a boat, and it allows you to
So like a
access
cherry
bridge
picker,
structures.
but on a boat.
So
Like a
what?
cherry picker, but on a boat.
Yeah,
Wow.
cherry picker boat would be an acceptable alternative.
So this was put in, and the lights were originally put in 2015?
Correct.
And when did they start failing?
I don't have that number. I do know that, based on my investigation, I started with Public Works last July. Based on my investigation, the lights were turned off in Winter Storm Uri period, and they haven't had much control since. And before that, there were challenges. I don't know what that looked like.
We're all on when Prince died, though.
They were.
Okay. Anything else there, Charles?
I would just like some feedback.
Yes.
I would like to work with city manager's office and finance and budget to come back with an agenda item on December 2nd.
I don't think it makes any sense to do just the two columns. I mean, if you're gonna have both bridges, you need to get all of it done in this one time, set up a management and maintenance plan for the whole thing, and it doesn't make any sense.
I agree. Anytime that there's only one company in the United States that provides the thing that you need to do it, it cannot be cheap, so I'd rather do it all at once.
Right, right.
I think especially given the history of the lights, the maintenance contract looks like the best money you could possibly spend.
Legit.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is I will go continue negotiation with the bidder and come back in December, work with city manager's office to come up with funding sources and bring you an agenda item in December.
Sounds good. As one more comment, great presentation. The fact that this was only on, I think, in 2015 and then reliable maybe for a couple of years. And I think that it became sort of an identification of the city, you know, a very complementary to our historic suspension bridge and sort of the juxtaposition. You can see one from the other, and this whole presentation is fantastic. Or the event of having the lights on is just a fantastic deal as you drive through town and are right there in downtown Waco. So I'm very excited about seeing this happen here now in the next, what'd you say, March, April sort of time period? The next.
Yeah, it just really depends on the fixtures. Like I said, typical delivery time after you approve the shop drawings is 8 to 12 weeks, and then it's just coordinating proper access. The only other way the bucket boat was the only option that
The bucket,
TxDOT
the
really
cherry
gave us.
picker bucket boat, yes. Well, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Bearfield too, making the point of, this is LED technology, and I'm sure what they used 10 years ago when they put it in has got to be different now and better, I would hope. So it makes sense to me to just do them all with the most current technology in the hopes that is there any kind of guarantee, like 10 years or 5 years or 15, whatever?
We can get you that information. We required a 1-year guarantee as a part of the bid.
Well, I mean, the technology itself, because, I mean, we're gonna hope that, I think one of the problems was the technology, once the bridge was done, it was obsolete very quickly after. So we want just a little bit more assurance that this 1.6 is not a wash.
And we're gonna do everything we can to try to
I know you will.
remove the requirement for the bucket boat. If we can move some of the hardware
Yeah.
and work with TxDOT and check
I
some of
know
those
y'all have
boxes
studied
to
like
make
the
it
other
easy.
cities that have, I mean, y'all did all that, and we appreciate that. The cities who've had, bridges and all the things, and seeing what they use just to make sure that we're on the right track. So we trust that that's gonna be the case, and we look forward to
Okay.
next issue.
Great. Thanks, Charles. The next item is work session 2025-739, discussion of public facility corporations, Assistant City Manager Holt.
Thank you, Mayor. The third work session presentation will be a presentation by Galen Price on public facility corporations, including what they are, what their intended purpose is, and the city's role. Today's work session comes to you in anticipation of a future item on a council agenda. Mr. Price?
Thank you, ACM Holt. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As ACM Holt mentioned, we will be discussing public facility corporations. Now, these are tied to requests that you have seen before, although these are requests you don't see often. So today we want to take some time to remind you of what they are and how they're used in particular. So in this discussion about public facility corporations, or PFCs, we'll talk about what they are, how they are used, and how they're able to help. In addition, we'll also dive into the process revolving around the city's role and highlight an item that will be brought to you in the future centered around a PFC development. So PFCs are non-member, nonprofit corporations authorized under Chapter 303 of the Local Government Code. They are created on behalf of entities such as municipalities, counties, school districts, and/or housing authorities. They're used to provide for and finance the acquisition, construction, rehab, renovation, and/or repair of public facilities or affordable housing at the lowest cost possible. In a deal structure with a PFC, the PFC generally owns the land and improvements and can enter into agreement with private entities for the development of these land and improvements. Now, why would a PFC be needed? Well, in our housing study, it identified we have a lack of affordable units for our extremely low-income households. Because of this gap, we have lower-income households who are paying above their affordability levels, crowding into units with other households or living in unfit places. There is also a need for mechanisms to control neighborhood stability, which the PFC can assist with by controlling price points and the length of affordability. They also have the ability to assist with infrastructure and site development costs, which can have an adverse impact on creating affordable opportunities within developments. Now, this tool, which is already being used in our community by the Waco Housing Authority, can assist with the development of mixed income housing. It can reduce operating expenses via property tax exemptions, which is one of the most significant costs when you're looking at net operating income in these developments. This exemption also creates the opportunity for an increased level of affordability within the project, as PFCs are required to have at least 50% of the units for households that are at 80% or below the area median income for that particular area. Now, the revenue generated from these partnerships within the PFC can be used by the PFC for other projects and or needs identified by that particular PFC. Now, back in 2022, the City of Waco created the Waco Community Public Facility Corporation in anticipation of a project coming online. Now, what's the city's role in these? The developer is required to hold a public hearing under the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, or the TEFRA Act. These hearings are held prior to seeking approval from the city for the issuance of the bonds, which is required by Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code as the governing body of the area in which the project would be located. Now, one thing I wanted to note is that these projects are not debt obligations of the city, so in the event that there would go into default, there is no financial liability to the city. Now, this slide shows the projects over time that have sought approval from the city under the PFC mechanism. Now, there will be an item that's brought forth at a future council meeting to approve the reissuance of bonds related to the Shady Acres project, which is located out on Airport Road. Now, these bonds were previously approved in 2024, but because the project is expanding, they'll be required to have a new approval for the expansion of the project. And so with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Director Price?
So if I'm understanding correctly, because we already have an established PFC, could the city of Waco itself utilize it for not just as, an opportunity to assist other organizations in the approval of or support of their bonds, but could we use it independently?
Yes, if the council decided that they wanted to determine some mechanisms, kind of how we would establish projects, how you wanted the PFC to be fully structured, what deals you would, how you would prioritize, all of those types of things, then it absolutely could.
And you're familiar with those from your past cities' experience?
Past cities and working with, having conversations with other cities as well.
Okay. Because I think, and as we've been looking at how we make some real impact and inroads in our deficits with, certainly housing and affordability being one, this is just, I mean, you know, in the big universal conversations of land banking and all the things, and I think this kind of falls in line with that in how we do that work, does it not?
Yes.
Okay, so this is something that we can talk about later at a greater depth and detail to utilize. I mean, if we have the tools, we might as well use them, right? He's like, I'm not gonna agree with you, lady. It's your decision.
I hadn't thought about it in that context. That's great. Piquing my curiosity now how that would work.
And my job's done.
I'm going to be obsessing over this for a week.
Maniacal laugh here.
Okay, thanks, Galen, for that presentation. So we'll, nothing to vote on today, but there'll be the Shady Acres bungalows will be coming back in a few weeks.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
The next item is work session 2025-740. We're going to have a discussion regarding traveling animal acts.
Thank you, Mayor. For the fourth work session today, Animal Services Director Melissa Sheldon will be joined by Animal Welfare Board members Dr. Michelle Nimick and Cheryl Foster to bring you a discussion on recommendations from the Animal Welfare Board related to traveling animal acts. Over the last decade and a half, we've worked closely with the Animal Welfare Board to craft animal-related ordinances, including Waco's spay, neuter, and microchip ordinance, pet shop ordinance, and most recently on the aggressive dog ordinance. Special thank you to Cheryl. She's rolling off as the chair of the Animal Welfare Board. She's been a great chair for us. And Dr. Nimick, I've known Dr. Nimick and worked with her on animals since 2007 or before. And I see Carrie in the audience as well, so thank you for your work on the Animal Welfare Board. That I'll turn it over to Director Sheldon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today we're here to seek your guidance on whether you'd like to move forward with drafting an ordinance related to animal exhibits, and if so, which option you would prefer. We're fortunate, as Ryan Holt said, to have a couple members from our Animal Welfare Board here with us today to share some background and context on this topic. Cheryl Foster, who serves as our board's chair, and Dr. Michelle Nimick, our animal welfare representative on the board. We'll walk you through a brief bit of history and present a few ordinance options for your review and feedback. If you direct us to proceed, we will return at a future meeting with the proposed ordinance for your formal consideration. I do also want to mention that city staff is supportive of this effort and has worked closely with the Animal Welfare Board to help draft these recommendations. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Michelle and Cheryl.
Thank you, Melissa, and good afternoon, City Council. We have some slides to jump through here on some of the background work that the Animal Welfare Board has done for about the last year on this topic. In the interest of time, I might skip through some of them kind of quickly, but if there's any questions, we can always go back and revisit or discuss further. This is the agenda. I believe that Melissa maybe mentioned an overview and history of the issue, the research and stakeholder engagement that occurred over the last year, and then recommendations from the Animal Welfare Board. I think it's really important to reiterate the scope, especially if there's media or new individuals here for this discussion. The research that was done by the Animal Welfare Board was specifically for this topic on traveling animal acts. So we're talking about exhibits where animals are transported from locations for the purpose of performing for a live audience. So it's not intended to apply to more permanent exhibits like the zoo or other habitats or sanctuaries that might exist in Waco. And this discussion is also focused on wild captive animals that are part of these traveling exhibits. It's not intended to apply, and the discussions were not meant to overlap with things like horses, cattle, or other livestock that could affect entities like the rodeo. So how did we get here and why? Last November, we had an exhibitor come to Waco with a traveling elephant act. You could maybe say that elephant was perched precariously right off Bosque Boulevard, and that raised quite a bit of citizens' concerns for the elephant, both I think from an animal welfare perspective, but also public safety. There was quite a bit of news coverage, petitions. We had some public comment at the Animal Welfare Board meetings. City staff time was diverted from other important projects to handle some of the news coverage for this as well. And there was some city criticism for not being able to do more, primarily I think due to lack of municipal level regulations on this topic. To add insult to injury, the specific exhibitor that was here had quite a few USDA warnings or learning moments addressed on their public interface on the USDA's website there, including things like deficiencies in veterinary care for the animals and some safety standard problems related to transport and housing. But I want to be clear that for the remainder of this discussion and the research that the Animal Welfare Board did, it was not about this specific exhibitor, it's about this broader topic in general. But it did spark the discussion for the board, how does Waco compare to other modern cities in Texas in terms of regulations for this area? And do we need to do more to protect the city, its citizens, and to ensure we're not sanctioning animal cruelty? So the next month, December 2024, at the regular board meeting for the Animal Welfare Board, the board entered in discussion about some gaps in regulations, risks of not having local regulations, and if we wanted to research this further for the board. The board voted unanimously to look into this topic further, and as Melissa said, city staff has been supportive of this and the interest that we had in this along the way. We do have quite a few city staff members at our board meetings. So a focus group was established of 4 volunteer board members to really do the background research and then present full updates to the full board at our monthly meetings. I would like to clarify that the goals of this focus group were pretty clear right from the beginning. It was to understand and respond to the very real concerns of citizens, to seek to improve public health and safety concerns as related to traveling animal acts with wild captive animals, and to do so in a way that does not impact zoos, other permanent animal exhibits, rodeos, or the local economy. So in December, the focus group had our first pretty substantial meeting with some Texas legislation experts. On that meeting were also some additional attendees, such as representative from Senator Birdwell's office. We had some Baylor Law students. But this meeting was with Shelby Boboski. She's the executive director of THLN. They work at the Capitol directly to help shape our state laws on animal-related issues. She's an attorney in the Dallas area. She specializes in animal law and civil litigation, and she's one of the experts in the state when it comes to Texas animal law, both at the state and local level. We discussed various regulations, federal, state, and local, where the gaps are, possible courses of actions that Texas cities take to close those gaps, and we had a chance to review a lot of sample ordinances from other Texas cities. From January to March, the focus group continued to meet and come back to the regular Animal Welfare Board meetings every month to present updates and enter into discussion and Q&A with the remainder of the board. The city legal team was represented at all of these meetings as well. 2 big things happened in February. There was a public poll, so board chair and focus group member Cheryl Foster presented at the McLennan Talk Series, Light on Texas Legislature, where the topic of animal welfare was being discussed. Traveling Animal Acts was brought up in that meeting, and the public was polled, and the attendees that were there were in favor of setting some types of standards or restrictions for traveling animal acts in Waco. And that was over looking at more like a total ban, which some Texas cities have done. And then also in February, we had a stakeholder meeting with Mr. Wes Allison and Mr. Brendan Wiley, Wes from the Extraco Event Center and Brendan from Cameron Park Zoo. That was a really good, informative meeting. We got great feedback from both of them and their unique perspectives, and we incorporated that feedback into the final ordinance drafts that the focus group ended up writing. And I'm under the impression that City Council has possibly heard some of this before on why municipalities even bother to regulate at the local level. So I'll just hit on each of these slides really quickly, again for time, but there are substantial reasons. Deficient federal laws, a long history of inhumane practices, public safety risk is a big one that usually speaks to local government, and public health risks as well. So there is a federal law, the Animal Welfare Act, but the Office of the Inspector General did an audit in 2010, and then a follow-up in 2022, and there in bold, highlighted in yellow, they concluded that the USDA cannot fully ensure the safety of the animals exhibited or the safety of the public who view those animals. So that means while regulations exist at the federal level, in practice, the standards are really implemented at the state or local level. Inhumane practices, I think this was an area of concern for a significant portion of Waco citizens. There's documented studies, publications on the amount of time that these traveling animals spend in extreme confinement, trained to perform really unnatural acts. We have a high level of stress in these animals. And there are local videos from local citizens from the elephant that was here in November, and that can, a review of those videos, you can really see some of those stress behaviors. And that leads to public safety risks. So this is, again, a primary reason why many municipalities start looking at some type of regulation. We have highly stressed animals. We have maybe lackluster containment, both in transportation and temporary enclosures. This is much different than what we see in a permanent habitat like a zoo. And the result is performing animal act rampages. So there's actually a term for it. It's not as rare as you would think. It does happen. And we also have to consider animal activists in the community who may want to free an animal if they are feeling a little empathetic to animals in this situation. So that could result in some type of crisis situation as well. The USDA does not require that these traveling exhibitors have any type of emergency plan. So what that means is the responsibility here falls exclusively on our local law enforcement to manage these crisis situations. Typically, it's my understanding local law enforcement does not necessarily receive specialized training on how to handle crisis situations with elephants or big cats or bears. And so in a lot of these cases when cities have faced lawsuits, it's because local first responders are making on-the-fly decisions without a lot of information and perceived mistakes are taking place. And finally, health risks. I won't say a lot here other than it's mainly tuberculosis in elephants that has come up in Texas in the past, specifically in Dallas. There is transmission documented by the CDC from elephants to humans, but this is also an area the USDA does not regulate anymore. They put that on the exhibitors to ensure they are testing and treating their elephants before taking them out for public performances. 3 general approaches for municipalities. This is pretty standard, whether in Texas or outside of Texas, and the Animal Welfare Board considered all of these. The first one is the most straightforward, just outlaw the use of specific wild animals in traveling exhibits. The next one is looking at setting some type of restrictions or minimal standards of care. There's a lot of Texas cities that have gone this route. And then looking at things like permits, so setting fees, for those permits, having some cities in Texas have some pretty hefty insurance requirements for these exhibitors before they come to town to protect the city in case something does happen. We have a lot of states and a lot of municipalities that have set some types of restrictions. The good news for the Animal Welfare Board is that meant we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. We could just look at ordinances that were already existing and successful in other Texas cities and try to decide what we thought might work best for Waco. So in late March, the focus group made their final recommendations to the Animal Welfare Board. We presented 2 final drafts of ordinances that we wanted to see if there might be interest in sending these along to City Council. Following thoughtful discussion at that meeting, the focus group recommended a motion and a vote to put both drafts in front of City Council for review to see if there was any feedback or interest. The vote to do that passed unanimously with the board. The focus group also polled the board members to see if the board members did have a preference to the 2 drafts we came up with. One draft was a little bit broader, applied to traveling exhibits with multiple types of animals, and one draft was specific just to elephants, and unanimously the board preferred the more broader impact with multiple different types of wild animals included. We took a break from April to August while the Texas legislature was in session to see if there were going to be any topics that might be useful for future discussions related to elephants or other wild captive animals. In August, the board recommendations were brought to City Boards and Commission Committee. In September, the board got the update that these would be up for a hearing by City Council, and that brought us here to today. The last thing I would like to add is from December last year to the present, the Waco Animal Coalition has also fully supported these efforts in setting some types of standards. So the Waco Animal Coalition is an open collaboration of McLennan County animal welfare nonprofits and stakeholders, including business stakeholders like trainers or other animal-related businesses who meet monthly. So this is up regularly at the meetings for discussion, and they do support looking into setting some types of standards for our city. And then there's 2 recommendations. The first one, this is the one that was preferred by the majority of the board, covers a larger category of animals. It has some definitions that we need to add to the ordinances. All of this text that was drafted, we did not make up. So we pulled it from other Texas cities, and it's pretty solid wording that's been around in many different places. And then the 2 standards that we were looking at were prohibiting the use of items that could cause unnecessary physical injury or suffering. That is very common in cities in Texas to have that standard of care when it comes to traveling animal acts. And then also requiring a licensed veterinarian to be in attendance for all displays. So that was also common for a couple of Texas cities, San Antonio and Corpus Christi. That was also interesting information we got from our meeting with Wes Allison when he was with Extraco in terms of professional associations like the rodeo and horsing associations and their internal requirements for veterinarians versus traveling animal acts not really having a professional association, so there's not really any type of requirements if they're not part of any bigger entities that would have requirements like that for a veterinarian. And then the other version was just focused on elephants, so essentially the same. We're just looking at really limiting the scope here to just elephants and also keeping those, prohibit the use of things that might cause physical injury or suffering and having a licensed veterinarian. I also think, and I think most of the board feels that had that been a requirement when the exhibit was here in November, the licensed veterinarian requirement, that might have helped the citizens a little bit in some of their concerns. And I'm sorry if that was really quick, but again, just trying to help for time. As Melissa mentioned, I think the point is we're interested in if City Council is interested in trying to improve our ordinances in this area to help protect the city and the citizens.
Any questions, comments?
I don't want to speak for the entirety of council, but I certainly think that we are interested in improving ordinances in this area. The only question I had is, in your research of other municipalities that have ordinances like this and sort of watching the legislative session this year, the only sort of kind of concern that rings in my mind is with House Bill 2127 from 2023. Obviously, we can't go above or beyond state law without subjecting ourselves to litigation potentially. And so I just wanted to make sure that in an attempt to enforce an ordinance, we wouldn't then be opening ourselves up to litigation. I'm assuming, based on the research you guys did with the other cities you had listed here, that were covered there, but wanted to make sure that was thought of.
Yes, and my impression is that we should be okay, especially with the research and the recommendations we did. There is some state law that has some requirements for certain types of wild animals on a list in Texas and their humane care.
Okay.
But a part of that also exempts circuses. And then has a section of that part of state law that allows municipalities to create their own regulations in that area.
Great. Awesome. Thank
We
you.
did check with that several times, and that's why we went on hold during the legislature. There was a
Just to be
bill
sure, yeah.
that was filed specifically towards elephants, and it died in committee.
Great.
So we felt like we could go forward after that.
Yeah. Thanks for your diligence on this. I know that that is sometimes like watching paint dry, so appreciate it.
No, I'll say thank you all very much. I heard from a lot of people last November about that. And I also heard from a lot of people with the fair and rodeo concern that, and so appreciate you all kind of navigating that.
Yeah, I would say that I join in the appreciation for all the good work that y'all have done in walking through this and the Animal Welfare Board. It does seem like this is something that would benefit our community to have some regulation in this area, both for public safety reasons, but also just for humane treatment of large animals. And I would be open to the standards of care for both the elephants and the big cats and other kind of large mammals that might come through. It just seems like it would just take one poorly treated or loose tiger from one of these things for us to just have to go back to the drawing board, you know, and I've seen Tiger King and I've seen what can happen. So my vote would be for that kind of standards of care for the big cats and the elephants as well. So I appreciate all y'all have done on this.
And some of that expanded version, for what it's worth, came from input from Brendan from the Cameron Park Zoo about things that might even affect them and their staff, like with the venomous non-native Texas snakes. That wasn't necessarily something that we had thought of, but that would impact them if there was an incident in Waco, and they would be the one that would be turned to assist with that situation, and that would then put their staff at risk.
Thank you.
So what are next steps in this, ACM? You're just going to bring it back in the form of ordinance changes?
That's correct. Yes, we would next take this back for a formal ordinance read, and we'd have 2 reads of that. I do want to talk about some impacts to the department too. So improving animal welfare. So this is important to us, ensuring that we have proper care and oversight of animals and exhibits. Aligning with best practices and community expectations, regulatory compliance, making sure that it allows us as the city to effectively enforce ordinances and take action if exhibitors fail to meet established standards, reduce our call volume and improve response so we're not having an increase of calls concerning animal welfare and reducing animal protection workload and allowing faster response to priority calls. So our next step would be, it sounds like we wanted to move forward with ordinance, proposal number 1, we would take that to a formal ordinance read.
Maybe, can you take it back to the slide? Because I'm reading this cold here today. I think we sent out this was sent out earlier today and I hadn't had a chance to look at it. So and I would also be curious what is city staff's recommendations?
Yeah, so we were very interjected into this process with the Animal Welfare Board, and we're in alignment with the Animal Welfare Board as to recommending option 1, or that was our preference.
And this option 1 would not hinder kind of I guess where most of these kind of animal acts, I think they had out at Extraco Event Center. So Wes and the new guy, I can't remember his name. Dustin, we might, if we talk to Wes's replacement out there.
Mayor, I'm going to chime in from the back.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. I was gonna call on you, but I didn't want to do it.
No worries.
Glad you volunteered.
Ashley Nystrom, Chief of Staff. I also serve on the Animal Welfare Board and work with our Animal Services Department. We haven't talked to the new replacement, but that was a large part of the conversation we had during the stakeholder process of specifically not affecting Heart of Texas Fair and Rodeo, traveling livestock shows.
Right.
One of the benefits of having this style of ordinance versus a permit or structure fee is that we're not going to be adding staff time as far as reviewing permits and approving permits and checking all the requirements. This simply, what other cities and the THLN let us know, when we have requirements like this, typically the bad actors just tend to avoid your city. And so we would have more of a reactive approach here with this type of ordinance if we had reports of a vendor coming to town with using these types of devices. We would have some enforcement mechanisms available to us. This isn't going to create a lot of staff work on the front end as far as more of those permitting type structures.
Okay. Well, I like how you've done the work here, and we're not saying you can't do that, you can't bring these to town, but if you do, we don't want any bull hooks, and we need a veterinarian on site. It just seems sort of kind of intuitively basic.
Common sense,
Yeah.
We just seem pretty common sense.
All right. Well,
Reasonable.
Ashley, I appreciate your work. I appreciate y'all's work on trying to figure this out. And we'll see you again in a couple weeks. Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Great presentation. Okay, ACM Holt, where are we going now?
All right, finally, last but not least, Clint Peters will be reviewing planning-related public hearings and information related to proposed code changes.
Bringing up the rear. Thank you, ACM Holt.
With the elephants.
Yeah, Mayor, City Council. We do have 4 public hearings tonight, 2 dealing with zoning cases, a historic landmark designation application, and then 1 ordinance amendment. I did want to cover a couple of these before we get into the code adoptions. So the first one is an ordinance amendment dealing with certificates of occupancy, or what we call a CO. As part of our department efficiency improvement efforts, we've been looking through our ordinances and seeing opportunities to improve or clarify certain ordinances for that predictability that we've talked about with our development community. And so one of the items that we looked at was our certificate of occupancies. Currently it's in our chapter 28, which is our zoning ordinance, and we're proposing to move it to chapter 6, which is our building and building regulations, which seems to fit better with what certificate of occupancy deals with after the construction process for occupying a building. And then in practice, there's a lot of different types of COs that we issue at different levels. But none of that is codified right now. So we wanted to codify all that, have definitions of all the different types, and having process for that. So we've defined definitions, provided definitions for clean and show, shell structure, and then the different levels of temporary certificate occupancies that allow occupancies at different levels of construction, depending on the need of the business. We've also put in some authority for the building official to suspend, revoke a CO under very certain rare conditions, mainly dealing with safety. And then we have what's called a change of use process, that if it's a change of use or a tenant or ownership changing, that a new CO is issued through a commercial check process. Again, we already have the commercial check process. We just wanted to codify that and have some specific language in our ordinance that deal with it. And this will improve the process, again, provide that predictability in the rules with our stakeholders, and then improve our record keeping as well. Plan Commission did recommend approval of this change, and we did review this with our development monthly meeting with the developers group. Our second public hearing that I wanted to cover is a rezoning out in China Spring area at Parker Springs Drive. It's about 28-acre tract that in the area that's mainly developed. These are the two last large tracts that are undeveloped in that area between Flat Rock out to Tree Lake in China Spring area. This area was annexed back in the early 70s. And then in 1978, there was a large tract that was rezoned to R3E, which is our most dense residential zoning that allows up to 40 units an acre, and then has no height requirements. And so it's a little bit out of nature scale with what the development patterns are in that area. So what the applicant is proposing is to change our land use plan. Right now, it's medium density residential office flex to provide some mixed use flex, some potential for some commercial out parcels along the frontage, and then have a remainder tract that's already zoned residential, but down zoning that to an R3C zoning that's more comparable than the development patterns that you see out there. Here's some analysis on the current zoning. You can see that the R3E zoning, about 23 acres, is zoned that at 40 units an acre. You're talking 925 units potentially at max density. What's being proposed is a lot lower. It's at 25 units an acre. So total density at max would be reduced from 979 to 706, and that's assuming that the C2 portion along the frontage would be developed for residential. But the intent of the developer would be to sell that out for out parcels for commercial development. So it does provide more of a consistent development pattern with what's out there with single-family development, some duplexes, and some low-density apartments. Same with the height. As I mentioned, the R3 has unlimited height. The proposed R3C has 35-foot height max, which is what's the consistently, the zoning that's out there has 35-foot height max, so it's consistent with the other zoning districts in the area. This is the track looking at Parker Springs from China Spring Road. Here is our very first new sign that advertises the rezoning that's required by our state law and city ordinance. They did a really good job with this one, so hopefully this will set the precedent on future cases.
And so, Clint, for those, can you pop it back one? We print a new sign for each one.
That's right.
And have to just kind of pop it in like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the applicant's responsible for putting up, and then it's got specific language on the posting to meet the state law and then give description of what's being changed.
So you provide, like your office provides the applicant the template to use.
Yes, sir.
They print it out, put it up at their expense.
Yep.
Okay, sounds cool.
Here's looking back down Parker Springs. You can see this is the property over here. There's already some apartment complexes there, and then you have some, this is the daycare facility there, and then there's single family and duplexes wrapped around it. Plan Commission did recommend approval of both the land use change and zoning change. We did get quite a bit of questions, emails, questioning the rezoning after we provided the information. This actually lowers the potential density. Most people were satisfied with that. We did get 2 letters of opposition after the Plan Commission hearing that opposed it. No opposition at the hearing itself, though. The next public hearing is the historic landmark designation that ACM Holt mentioned, that they've asked for a continuance to the December 16th meeting. This is at 3600 MacArthur Drive. The applicant is in the process of selling the property and wants to give the new owner time to evaluate if they want to move forward with the designation. So that December 16th or 15th would be the date to be continued to. I won't go into detail on the designation. It's a mid-century modern home, has a lot of history to it, but we'll cover it at the continued hearing in December. And staff does recommend approval of that continuance.
Was that how it's currently furnished?
That is it, yeah, that is it.
Oh, wow, very vintage era.
Yeah. And then last but not least, this is not a public hearing, but one of our ordinances, but I did want to give you a brief overview of it because it is a pretty big deal that we've spent a lot of time on over the summer with our building code adoptions. This is our building codes that all our buildings are constructed under. We operate under 2 codes, International Code and the National Electric Code. The International Building Code, or IBC, is a model building code developed by the International Code Council. It establishes minimum regulations for building design, construction, and safety with the primary purpose of protecting public health, safety, and general welfare of the occupants and the public, and then provides uniform standards for building constructions across all jurisdictions, not only in the U.S., but across the globe. And then the NEC, or National Electric Code, also known as NFPA 70, is a benchmark standard for safe electrical design, installation, and inspections in the United States. That's developed and published by the National Fire Protection Association. Again, for the purpose of safety, installation of electrical wiring and equipment, protection against fire and electrical shock, and the consistent practices across the board for designers, installers, and inspectors. So these codes are issued or put out in 3-year cycles. We are currently under the 2018 I-codes and then the 2020 NEC. The most recent versions of those are the 2024 I-codes and the 2023 NEC. Adoption of these codes are important to maintaining our ISO 1 rating. If you get too far out of cycle, they'll start docking you points on that rating. So it's important to keep current codes on that. So we spent several months with our Building Inspection Advisory and Appeal Board, made up of trade professionals, design professionals, across the board with residential and commercial builders. Scott Bland, who's a local home builder, was our board chair. They held 5 public meetings throughout the summer, and then our city staff, development services staff, and then fire marshal's office worked with them closely. Some of the significant recommendations in this code adoptions is to have an automatic adoption procedure. And so instead of having to do these full reviews when a new cycle comes out, when the new code comes out, that we'd have in our ordinance, we'll have an automatic adoption for new versions of the International Code at 12 months after publication, unless there's some action taken by the city. So that gives some time for not only the city staff to look at it, but also our stakeholder groups there are trade associations and different groups to look at it. And if there's anything that needs to be addressed during that 12 months, we'll address it. If not, then it's automatically adopted.
That would, so Clint, it would automatically go into effect without council action after 12 months following publication
Correct.
of the new code.
And if there was something that we needed to differ, an appendix or a local amendment, we would bring that to you during that 12 months.
Or if we felt as a council like there's something about this code that's a bridge too far, we would take action before the 12 months.
That's correct. That's correct. Same thing with the National Electric Code. It's actually a state mandated, and so those would be automatically adopted as well, as the state adopted those codes. This does streamline the adoption process, but it still provides that time for, special consideration if there's some things that we want to change with the new code. Cooling facilities, the code already has a requirement for heating, so when it's cold outside, you do have to provide the capability of heating to a minimum of 65 degrees in cold weather. But our codes do not have anything about when it's hot, cooling our buildings. So this is a local amendment that we're recommending that would require some cooling requirements. So when it's hot, you would have to cool to a temperature of 15 degrees, cooler than the outside temperature, or 85 degrees, whichever is lower. And we did add that, Mayor, we did add that we don't want you to cool lower than 70. So just
a little qualifier that I caught last time. In case it is 65 degrees outside.
That's right.
You don't have to get it down to 50.
Open their windows.
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank
Clint,
you.
you may have said this. How often are the international codes changed?
Every 3 years.
Every 3 years, okay.
Yeah. And especially in Texas with our hot summers, we felt like having a cooling requirement is as important or maybe even more important than having the heating requirements. And then the one topic that we didn't see quite eye to eye with the advisory board was EV charging infrastructure, which is the IRC Appendix NE, that requires some form of EV capable or EV ready or EV supply equipment in single family or duplex structures. Staff had asked the board to consider this appendix. The board did consider it and recommended not to adopt it. We think there's a compromise in there because there is a lot of these being put in new homes as an amenity for homes. And so we feel like if you are installing that infrastructure, that it should meet the standard of the code. And so we do recommend, the staff does recommend adopting the appendix, but changing the shall to a may. So if you're putting it in, then you follow the standards, but you're not required to put it in. We think that's a good compromise to move this forward and make sure our housing's safe.
Can you hold on that slide for just a second?
Sure.
So the code is the standard if they install.
If they install, but it's not a requirement that they install.
Yeah, this was in the informal report last meeting.
That's right.
I had that one all marked up, and I said, yeah, it should be shall. I'm sorry, it should be may. Thank you. It should be may.
It shall.
It will add to the.
May.
It shall be may, or maybe shall. I don't know. It feels like, yeah, because we're all trying to get affordable housing, and we keep adding these things on, and I know that, but if they are going to put it in there, make sure it's up to code. So good work on that.
And that's all we have. It was a great process. The advisory board did a good job being thorough and responsive to city staff, and we appreciate all their work on this. They spent a lot of time going through the codes and making recommendations to the council.
Thanks for their work on this, Clint. We appreciate you and your team.
Thanks, Clint.
Sure.
ACM Holt, I think we got through everything in pretty good time.
That's it.
All right.
A lot of information. Y'all got through it.
Great meeting. Do we have any requests for future agenda items, the council members? Hearing none, we will now recess the work session and reconvene the regular session for executive session. Is read into the record by the City Secretary Hicks at 5:10 PM.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council will go into executive session in accordance with the following provisions: Real Property, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.072. Economic Development, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087. Attorney Briefing, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.071. And Personnel, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.074. Discussion of City Manager Appointment Process. And Attorney Briefing, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.071. A construction contract with Environmental Improvements Incorporated for the Mount Carmel Water Treatment Plant Chlorine Scrubber. We are now in executive session.